Sandra sat at her desk and rubbed her temples slowly. The office was almost empty. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner and the distant clicking of keyboards broke the silence. It had been another long, heavy day at the real estate company where she worked as an assistant manager. Her computer screen still showed the last report she had just finished. Her eyes stung. For months, she had been pushing herself, staying late, skipping lunch, trying to impress her boss so she could finally get that big promotion. The new estate project was all she thought about. If she handled it well, her life could change. But right now, she was just tired. She leaned back in her chair and let out a deep breath. "I'm so tired," she whispered to herself. Her phone lay on the table beside the stack of files. She picked it up and stared at the screen for a moment, then tapped on Felix's name. Calling him after work had become her little comfort. No matter how bad the day was, hearing his voice always made her feel calmer. The video call rang once, twice, 3 times. No answer. She frowned slightly and tried again. Still nothing. Sandra pressed her lips together. "Felix, pick up now, please," she muttered under her breath. The call ended on its own. No reply. No message. She checked their chat. The last text was from her in the morning. "Good luck with your meeting, babe. Call me later." It had only one tick. Not delivered. Maybe he's still busy, or his phone died, she said to herself, trying to push away the small sting in her chest. She dropped the phone on the desk and stared at the office around her. Everyone had gone home. The cleaner was mopping near the entrance. The sky outside the window was already dark, the city lights blinking softly in the distance. All she wanted now was to relax, go home, eat something small, maybe talk to Felix and sleep. But that little feeling of being ignored started growing inside her. She picked the phone again, opened the camera, and looked at herself. Her makeup was a bit faded, but she still looked pretty. She brushed her hair back and adjusted her blouse. A tiny, mischievous smile touched her lips. "So you're too busy to pick my call, right?" she said quietly, half teasing, half annoyed. "Let me remind you what you're missing." She checked the door to be sure no one was around. The cleaner had moved to the corridor. The office was now very quiet. Sandra stood up, angled her body a bit, and took one picture. Then another, and another. She made sure they were private, playful, and meant only for Felix's eyes. She laughed softly at herself. Felix will go crazy when he sees this, she thought. In total, she took 4 private pictures, feeling a bit shy but excited. She sat back down and opened her messaging app, ready to send them to him. At that moment, her mind was everywhere, on her reports, the promotion, Felix, her tired body. She wasn't really paying attention. She held her phone and spoke without thinking too much. "Hey Siri, send my last 4 pictures to my boyfriend." Then she stood up and started walking toward the small office bathroom, hoping to freshen up before going home. Meanwhile, Siri responded almost instantly. "Yes, I'm sending your last 4 pictures to your boss, Fred." Sandra stopped walking. For a second, she didn't even understand what she had just heard. Then it hit her. She spun around so fast that her bag slipped off her shoulder and fell to the floor. "What?" she shouted. Her heart jumped to her throat. No, no. She rushed back to her desk, almost tripping on the chair. Her hands were already shaking as she grabbed the phone. Her fingers felt weak, as if they didn't want to move. She unlocked her phone, opened her messages, and her heart dropped when she saw it. 4 photos sent under Fred Boss, already marked as read. Her vision blurred for a moment. The room seemed to spin. "No, oh God, no," she whispered. Her knees almost gave way, and she had to hold the edge of the table to keep herself from falling. Her heartbeat was loud in her ears, heavy and fast. This is a mistake. This is a terrible mistake, she thought, her mind running in circles. She tapped the chat, hoping it was some kind of error, some kind of joke. But the pictures were there, clearly visible. Her boss had seen them. Her phone slipped slightly in her hand as she tried to delete the message. "Delete, delete, delete," she cried, pressing every option she could find. But it was too late. She could only remove them from her own side of the chat. On Fred's side, it was already there, and the small read mark stared back at her like a nightmare. Her breathing became shallow. A wave of shame rushed over her, hot and heavy. "What have I done?" she whispered, feeling tears sting her eyes. "Oh God, what have I done?" She imagined Fred sitting somewhere, maybe at home or in his car, opening his phone, seeing her name, and then those pictures. Her stomach twisted. Her mind flooded with horrible thoughts. What if he saves them? What if he shows someone? What if he calls me into his office tomorrow? What if he uses them against me? What if I lose my job? Her chest tightened. She felt trapped. All this because of one careless voice command. The cleaner walked past the office door and glanced in, but Sandra quickly turned her face away, wiping her eyes. She didn't want anyone to see her like that. She forced herself to sit down. Her hands were still shaking. She picked up her phone again and stared at the message. Should she send another text? "Sir, I'm so sorry, it was a mistake." She typed it, then deleted it. What if that makes it worse, she thought. What if he wasn't even looking at his phone properly, and now I'm reminding him? She dropped the phone on the desk again and covered her face with both hands. This can ruin everything, she thought. My job, my promotion, my name in this company. Her mind also went back to Felix. If only you had picked my call, she muttered bitterly. I wouldn't have done this. But deep down, she knew the mistake was hers. After a few minutes, when her breathing had calmed just a little, she stood up slowly, gathered her things and left the office. The corridor felt colder than usual. Her footsteps sounded loud on the tiles. In the elevator, she stared at her reflection. Her eyes were red and tired. She forced herself to keep a straight face in case she met anyone downstairs. Outside, the night air touched her skin, but it didn't bring comfort. The city lights looked distant. She walked to the bus, stopped like a robot, clutching her bag to her chest, her phone still in her hand. On the bus ride home, she barely noticed the noise, the people talking, or the baby crying at the back. All she could see in her mind were those 4 pictures on her boss's phone. What if he calls human resources? What if he starts acting funny with me in the office? What if he blackmails me? What if he tells me to do things I don't want just to keep my job? Every thought was worse than the last. By the time she got home, she was exhausted, but not from work. This time it was from fear. She closed the door behind her and leaned on it, eyes closed. Her small apartment, which usually felt warm and safe, now felt like a cage. She dropped her bag on the sofa and went straight to her bed, throwing herself down and staring at the ceiling. She picked up her phone again and checked if Fred had replied. Nothing. No message. No missed call. Somehow, that scared her even more. If he says nothing, what does it mean? She thought. Is he pretending? Is he waiting to talk to me tomorrow? Is he thinking of what to do? She opened Felix's chat again. Where are you? She typed. Please call me. It's urgent. She watched the screen. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. Still one tick. Not delivered. Tears finally rolled down her cheeks. Why is everything happening at once? She whispered. Work. Felix. Now this. She got up, paced the room, then sat again. She tried to eat, but had no appetite. She tried to watch something on her phone, but nothing held her attention. Her mind kept going back to the chat with Fred and the notification underneath, showing that he had already opened the pictures. That night, Sandra lay in bed, eyes wide open, the room dark around her. The clock ticked slowly. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw a boss's expression in her imagination, holding his phone, staring at her photos. She turned from one side to the other, hugging her pillow, her heart still heavy and restless. What if tomorrow is the end of everything? She thought. And as the hours dragged on, sleep stayed far away, while the mistake replayed in her head over and over again. The next morning, Sandra woke up with her stomach tight and heavy. She could barely breathe. She forced herself to get dressed, even though her hands were shaking the whole time. Every step she took towards the office felt like she was walking into a fire. As she entered the building, her phone buzzed. A message from Fred. Come to my office. Her heart dropped instantly. Her legs felt weak. She stopped in the hallway, staring at the message. Part of her wanted to ignore it, pretend nothing happened, run back home. But she knew she couldn't. There was no escape. She took a slow, shaky breath, straightened her blouse, lifted her chin, and began the long walk to his office. Her heels tapped softly on the tiles. Each step made her chest tighter. When she reached the door, she knocked lightly. "Come in," Fred's voice called from inside. Sandra pushed the door open. Fred sat at his desk, his fingers tapping slowly on the table. He looked up at her with a small smirk on his face. "Good morning, Sandra," he said smoothly. "I'm sure you know why I called you." Sandra swallowed hard. "Yes, sir," she managed to whisper. Fred leaned back in his chair, unlocked his phone with a few taps, and turned the screen toward her. There they were, her 4 private pictures, bright and clear on his screen. Sandra's heart stopped. Her throat closed up. She felt heat rush to her face. Fred's smirk grew wider. "I assume," he said slowly, "you didn't mean to send these to me." Sandra dug her nails into her palms to stop her hands from shaking. "So, it was a mistake," she said softly. "I meant to send them to my boyfriend. Please delete them." Fred gave a low, amused chuckle. "Oh, I don't think I'll be doing that," he said. Sandra froze. Fred leaned forward slightly. "See, Sandra, I've been watching you. You're smart. You work hard. You're ambitious. And now..." He lifted the phone slightly. "You've given me a little leverage." Her stomach twisted. "Leverage," she repeated, her voice trembling. Fred placed his phone on the table and folded his arms. "The board is considering giving you the lead role on a major project," he said. "You've worked hard for it, haven't you?" Sandra stiffened. "Yes, sir," she said carefully. "Well," Fred continued, "I want that project. And I'm giving you a simple choice." He leaned closer. "You will go to the board and tell them you don't want the project anymore. Recommend me instead. If you do that, I'll keep these pictures to myself. No one will ever know." Sandra's vision blurred for a moment. She had spent months researching, staying late, preparing plans, all for this one opportunity. This project was her ticket to a promotion, her chance to finally stand out, her chance to be respected. And now Fred wanted to destroy everything. "So, this isn't fair," she whispered. "You know how hard I've worked. You can't do this." Fred's smile disappeared. His face hardened. "Fair," he repeated. "I don't think you're in a position to talk about fairness, Sandra." He picked up his phone again and tapped the screen. Her pictures filled the screen once more. Her chest tightened painfully. She knew exactly what he meant. If those pictures leaked, her job, her name, her life, everything could be ruined. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she forced them back. She lowered her head. Her voice came out weak. "Fine," she murmured. "I'll do it." Fred stood up with a satisfied grin. "Good girl," he said. "The board meeting is in an hour. Don't disappoint me." Sandra nodded slowly, feeling her world crumble. Her dream was slipping away, and there was nothing she could do. Sandra left Fred's office feeling sick. Her legs felt weak. Her chest felt heavy. She had just given up the biggest opportunity of her career, all because of one terrible mistake. 1 hour later, she stood in the boardroom in front of Mr. Anthony, the CEO of the company. He was looking through some notes when she walked in. He lifted his head and gave her a warm smile. "Sandra, we're excited to hear your presentation today," he said. Sandra's throat tightened. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest. She took a deep breath and held the edge of the table to steady herself. I'm sorry, sir," she said quietly. "I won't be able to present the project. I would like to step down and recommend Fred to lead it instead." The room went silent. Mr. Anthony frowned and adjusted his glasses. "Excuse me," he asked slowly. "Sandra, you have worked tirelessly on this project. You are the best person to lead it. Why would you step down now?" Sandra bit her lip. She wanted to tell him everything. She wanted to scream that Fred was blackmailing her, that he was a horrible man using her mistake against her. But fear held her back. She forced a small smile that did not reach her eyes. "I just feel that Fred is more experienced," she said, even though the words made her feel sick. "He deserves it more." Mr. Anthony watched her closely. "Is someone pressuring you to do this?" he asked, his sharp eyes studying her face. Sandra froze. If she told the truth, Fred could release her pictures. He could destroy her name, her career, everything. She felt trapped. "No, sir," she whispered. "This is my decision." Mr. Anthony did not look convinced. He kept staring at her for a few seconds, then sighed and nodded. "All right," he said quietly. "If that is what you want." Sandra turned and walked out of the boardroom, her heart heavy, her dreams crushed. As soon as she stepped into the hallway, she saw Fred waiting for her. He was leaning against the wall with a smug expression on his face. "Good job," he whispered as she passed. "But we're not done yet." Sandra stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaking. Fred leaned in closer, his voice low and dirty. "I want more than just the project," he murmured. "I want you." Sandra felt her blood run cold. "Tomorrow, after my presentation," Fred continued, "I'll book a hotel. You will meet me there. Or else." He gave her a wicked smile. "Well, you know what happens." Sandra's stomach turned. "No," she whispered. "I won't do that." Fred chuckled darkly. "Oh, you will," he said. "Unless you're ready for everyone to see those pictures." He walked away, leaving her standing there with tears filling her eyes. She felt trapped, but a tiny voice inside her asked, "Is this really the end? Or is there a way out?" Back at her desk, Sandra sat staring blankly at her computer screen. She wasn't seeing anything. Her mind was full of fear, anger, and desperation. Fred had already taken her project. Now he wanted her too. She wanted to fight back. She wanted to destroy him. But how? If she refused him, he would release the pictures. If he released the pictures, her reputation at work and outside work would be ruined. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. "I need to think," she told herself. "There must be another way. There has to be a way out." Just then, her office phone rang. She jumped. It was a call from Mr. Anthony. He wanted to see her. Her pulse quickened as she stood up and walked to the CEO's office. Did he suspect something? Did he know why I really stepped down? When she entered, Mr. Anthony gestured for her to sit. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Sandra," he began, leaning forward, "I've been in this business a long time. I know when someone is lying to me." Sandra's breath hitched. "You worked too hard on that project to just give it up," Anthony continued. "Something doesn't feel right. And after the meeting, I saw you talking to Fred. You looked distressed." Sandra's hands gripped the armrest of her chair. "Tell me the truth," Anthony said gently. "Is Fred forcing you to do something?" Sandra wanted to tell him everything. Her heart was screaming to speak. But then she remembered Fred's threat. The pictures. The shame. What if he finds out I talked? She shook her head slowly. "No, sir," she said. "It was my decision." Anthony sighed, clearly not satisfied. Before he could say more, there was a knock on the door. His secretary walked in, holding a small USB drive. "So, I have something you might want to see," she said, handing it to him. "It's from the CCTV footage outside the boardroom." Sandra's heart jumped. Anthony plugged the USB into his laptop and opened the file. Sandra watched nervously as the video played. The footage showed exactly what happened after the meeting. Fred talking to Sandra in the hallway. His body language looked aggressive and controlling. Sandra's face was clearly upset, her eyes red and teary. There was no sound, but anyone watching could see that something was very wrong. Anthony paused the video and turned to her. "You're still telling me Fred isn't forcing you into something?" he asked quietly. Sandra froze. This was it. Her chance. She could keep lying and stay trapped. Or she could finally speak the truth. She took a shaky breath. I made a mistake, sir," she whispered. Her voice began to break. "I accidentally sent private pictures to Fred. He kept them. He's using them to blackmail me." Anthony's expression darkened at once. "Blackmail," he repeated, his jaw tightening. Sandra nodded, tears running down her cheeks now. "He forced me to step down from the project," she said. "And now he wants me to meet him at a hotel tomorrow." Anthony's fists clenched on the table. "That bastard," he muttered under his breath. For the first time since everything started, Sandra felt she wasn't alone. Someone powerful finally believed her and was angry on her behalf. "Don't worry, Sandra," Anthony said firmly. "Fred thinks he is in control, but by tomorrow, he will regret ever threatening you." Sandra sat in Anthony's office, still shaken, but a small hope growing inside her. Anthony leaned back, thinking. "You were brave to tell me this," he said. "But we must be careful. If we confront Fred now, he might release the pictures or deny everything." Sandra's hands tightened. "Then what do we do?" she asked. Anthony's eyes hardened with determination. "We set a trap," he said. He picked up his phone and dialed the number. "Get me the head of IT and security. Now," he said. A few minutes later, two men entered the office. Obi, the head of IT, and George, a private investigator who worked with the company on security issues. "We have a situation," Anthony told them. Then he looked at Sandra. "Tell them everything." Sandra hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and repeated her story from the beginning. How she mistakenly sent the pictures to Fred, how he kept them, how he made her give up the project, and how he now wanted her to meet him at a hotel. Obi's face tightened with anger. "This is illegal," he said. "We can track his phone, check his cloud storage, and see where he kept the pictures. If they are stored online, we can wipe them." George folded his arms. "That's good," he said. "But we also need strong evidence of the blackmail itself. We need him to admit what he is doing. Once we have that, he can't escape." Anthony nodded. "And that," he said, "is where we trap him." He turned to Sandra. "Tomorrow, you are going to go to that hotel," he said. Sandra's stomach dropped. "What? No, I can't," she said quickly, panic in her voice. Anthony raised his hand gently. "You won't be alone," he assured her. "We will set up a recording device. The moment Fred threatens you or repeats his demands, we will have it all on record. That will be enough to destroy his career and protect you. I will make sure he never works in this industry again." Sandra's hands trembled, but when she looked at Anthony, Obi, and George, she saw something clear in their faces: support and determination. They were ready to fight for her. She swallowed hard, wiped her tears, and nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's do it." The next day, Sandra got a message from Fred. "Room 205. Don't be late." She stared at the text, her fist slowly tightening. Before, that message would have filled her with fear. Today, something had changed. Anger was stronger than her fear now. "Not this time, Fred," she whispered. She pinned the small hidden voice recorder inside her blouse, just like Anthony, George, and Obi had planned. She checked it again to make sure it was on. Then she left for the hotel. When she walked into the hotel lobby, her heart was beating very fast, but she kept her face calm. She looked around and quietly spotted George and two security officers in plain clothes. They were pretending to be normal hotel guests, sitting in different corners, but their eyes met hers for a second. She felt a little stronger. She was not alone. Sandra walked down the corridor to room 205. Her hands were shaking, and she could hear her heartbeat in her ears. She stopped in front of the door, took one deep breath, and knocked. The door opened. Fred stood there, grinning. "Right on time," he said, moving aside so she could enter. Sandra hesitated for a moment, then forced herself to walk in. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and the sound made her chest tighten. As soon as the door shut, Fred turned to her, his smile growing wider. "You made the right choice," he said, walking closer. "Now, let's get to the real fun." Sandra's skin crawled. She wanted to run, but she remembered the recorder on her chest and Anthony's words. "Stay calm. Get him to talk. We'll do the rest." She forced a small, shaky smile. "Before that," she said softly, "tell me something, Fred." He stopped, amused. "What?" he asked. "Why did you make me give up the project?" she asked, her voice low but clear. Fred chuckled, completely confident. "Because I could," he said proudly. "You had no choice. Just like now." Sandra felt sick inside, but she kept going. She knew she needed one more clear answer. "And what if I had refused?" she asked. Fred's eyes hardened. His voice turned cold. "Then those pictures would be all over the internet," he said. You'd lose everything. Your job, your respect, your career. Everyone would see what you sent me. That was the moment they were waiting for. Before Fred could move or say another word, the hotel door burst open. George and the security team rushed in. Fred's face went pale. "What the?" he shouted. Mr. Anthony stepped in last, calm but firm, his arms crossed. "It's over, Fred," Anthony said. "We recorded everything." Fred stumbled back, shock all over his face. You set me up," he cried. Sandra's fear was gone. She felt something new, strength. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "No, Fred," she said firmly. "You did this to yourself." Fred stood frozen. The fake confidence he always carried was gone. His eyes jumped from Sandra, to Anthony, to George, searching for a way out. This is illegal," Fred shouted, panicking. "You can't just record me like that." George gave a small, cold smile. "Actually, we can," he said. "Blackmail and coercion are crimes, Fred. You just admitted to both. And thanks to this recording, we have all the proof we need." Fred's face twisted with anger. He pointed a shaking finger at Sandra. "You did this," he yelled. "You set me up." Sandra didn't flinch. She lifted her chin. "No, Fred," she said. "You set yourself up the moment you decided to blackmail me." Anthony stepped forward, his eyes full of controlled fury. "You're done, Fred," he said. "Not only are you fired, but I will make sure you never work in this industry again." Fred's anger turned into fear. Wait, let's talk about this," he begged. "We can make a deal." Anthony shook his head slowly. "The only deal you'll be making is with the police," he replied. At that moment, 2 uniformed police officers stepped into the room. "Fred," one of them said, "you're under arrest for blackmail, harassment, and coercion." The blood drained from Fred's face. No, you can't do this," he shouted. The officers grabbed his arms and pulled them behind his back to handcuff him. "You have the right to remain silent," one of them began. Sandra watched as the metal cuffs closed around Fred's wrists. She felt something heavy lift from her chest. As they led Fred out of the room, he twisted and tried to look back at her, his face full of hate and humiliation. "Sandra, you'll regret this. I swear." The door closed hard behind him, cutting off his last words. Silence filled the room. Sandra finally let out a long breath she didn't know she was holding. Her knees almost gave way. Anthony stepped closer and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's over now," he said quietly. Tears filled Sandra's eyes, not from fear this time, but from relief. She had fought back. And she had won. News of Fred's arrest spread through the company like wildfire. Some people were shocked. Others were not surprised at all. They had always felt there was something wrong with him. But one thing was clear. Fred was never coming back. Anthony called a meeting with the board members. "After yesterday's events," he began, "it is clear that Fred was not only unfit for his position, but he also abused his power in the worst possible way." The board members nodded in agreement. Anthony turned to Sandra, who was sitting quietly at the table. "Sandra," he said, "you were the real leader of the project. You did the hard work. You earned this." He paused, then smiled. "I'm officially promoting you to Assistant Director of Operations." Sandra's eyes widened in shock. "Sir, are you serious?" she asked. Anthony nodded. "You deserve it," he said simply. The board members began to applaud. Later, Sandra sat in her new office, running her fingers slowly over the smooth, polished mahogany desk. The past week had felt like a storm. Fred's arrest, her promotion, the messages from colleagues telling her they supported her. She had faced her biggest fear, and now she was finally free. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Felix. "I'm so proud of you, my love. You're the strongest person I know." A warm smile spread across her face. Felix had been her rock, even when she didn't tell him everything. He knew something was wrong, but he never forced her to explain. He just stayed close, patient and kind. Sandra took a deep breath. "It's time," she thought. She called him. He picked up immediately. "Hey, babe," Felix said, his voice warm. "How's your first day as assistant director?" She laughed softly. Overwhelming, she said. But good. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about everything that happened. For the next few minutes, she told him the full story. The mistaken message. The blackmail. How Anthony, George, and the security team helped her trap Fred. How he was arrested. How she was promoted. When she finished, there was a short pause. Then Felix sighed. Sandra, I wish you had told me sooner, he said gently. I would have helped you. I know, she whispered. I was just scared. I felt so ashamed. But it's over now. Felix's voice became softer. I'm so proud of you, he said. You didn't let him win. Sandra closed her eyes for a moment, feeling peace wash over her. Before, she thought she was fighting alone. Now she understood she was never truly alone. She had her own courage. She had people who believed her. She had support. And most of all, she had survived. A month later, Sandra sat quietly in a courtroom. Fred stood in front of the judge, his hands shaking slightly. The room was silent as everyone listened. All evidence shows that the defendant used explicit images to blackmail and force an employee, the judge said in a fine voice. Blackmail is a serious crime. Therefore, I hereby sentence Fred Toju to 10 years in prison, and I place a permanent ban on him working in the corporate sector. Fred's face went pale. All his pride, all his confidence, was gone. He turned his head and looked at Sandra with pure hatred in his eyes. But Sandra did not feel fear anymore. She only felt pity. He had destroyed himself. As the officers walked Fred out of the courtroom in handcuffs, Anthony leaned closer to Sandra. Justice served, he whispered. Sandra nodded slowly. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly light inside. It was finally over. Months passed. Sandra grew stronger in her new role as assistant director. She handled projects with confidence. Her colleagues respected her, not only because she was smart, but because she had shown courage when it mattered most. People came to her for advice. They trusted her. One evening, after a long but good day at work, she stepped out of the office building. The sun was setting, and the city lights were beginning to glow. She saw someone waiting near the gate. It was Felix. He smiled the moment he saw her and walked toward her. You're late, he teased gently. I had a long day at work, she said gently. He pulled her into a warm hug and held her there for a moment. Felix smiled and took her hand. Come with me, he said gently. He opened the car door for her, and they both got in. He didn't say where they were going, and Sandra didn't ask. She simply watched him drive, the evening breeze blowing softly through the open window. After a few minutes, he slowed down and turned into a quiet garden, decorated with soft lights and flowers. It was calm, peaceful, beautiful. Sandra looked around, surprised. Felix, what is this? She asked softly. He didn't answer. She turned to face him, and that was when she saw it. Felix pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket. Sandra's breath caught. Her heart started beating faster. Her hands trembled without her control. Felix opened the box. Inside was a beautiful ring that sparkled softly under the gentle garden lights. Sandra, he said, his voice soft but steady, you've been through so much. You were hurt, afraid, and still you came out stronger. I want to be by your side for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? Tears filled Sandra's eyes, this time not from pain or fear, but from deep happiness. Yes, she whispered. Then she laughed through her tears. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. Felix slipped the ring onto her finger. She threw her arms around him and they kissed under the soft garden lights, surrounded by flowers and quiet evening air. In that moment, Sandra realized something. She had walked through darkness. She had faced shame, fear, and danger. But now, she was stepping into a new life. A life filled with light, love, and endless possibilities. The end. Moral lesson. Always speak up when something feels wrong. Silence gives power to the wrong person, but courage, no matter how small, can change everything. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next upload. Thanks for watching.